Hey, nice Atypical Daydream t-shirt.
Thanks. It's my favorite podcast.
Mine too. But where can I get a t-shirt?
It's easy. The link is in the show notes.
That is easy. I'm gonna go get one right now.
That's a great idea.
Thanks. Bye.
You bet. Stay cool.
And did I look the part? Was I, needy enough? Was I taking something from somebody else who actually really needed these things more than I did?
Hello, my Atypical Daydreamers. Welcome to the podcast, a show about life on the road when you're far from routines and comfort zones. My guest today is Tracy Droz Tragos. She's a documentary filmmaker, writer, and was recently displaced by the LA fires that destroyed much of the Pacific Palisades. 2 years ago, my family and I moved to Berlin, Germany. We reduced everything we owned down to one single pallet. That process forced us to ask, what really matters? What can we let go of? And what can't we bear to lose? Now imagine losing not just your TV, gardening tools, the contents of your sock drawer, but the irreplaceable things, your kids' drawings, old family photos, even your whole life's work. It's hard to fathom that kind of loss. Today's guest gives us a window into what it means to face that kind of grief, to slow down, to feel the weight of it, and to somehow find a way to begin again.
There are things called acts of God, these kind of natural disasters, whether it's the universe, whether it's fate, whether it's destiny. Who knows why and if they are meant for us or if they are not meant for us, if the universe is trying to tell us something. But, I have had brushes with fire throughout my life. I've evacuated when I used to live in Topanga Canyon and had to be away from my home for 5 days, but my home didn't burn. I was able to go back. I did a documentary about the Paradise fires in Northern California, in Paradise, California, and saw the aftermath of that. And it was a pretty searing experience. And then there was January 7th, 2025. And I'm, in my yoga clothes. My kids are still off school. School hasn't started back up yet after the winter break. And I see smoke on the ridge and wonder, because it feels very far away, but you can see the clouds, and I can also actually see flames. And that was what really struck me at the time. There are flames that I can see, and that is probably not good. No one told us to evacuate. There was no, police car going down all the roads. We just thought, this doesn't seem good. Let's just get out of the way for the firefighters and go somewhere else for a little bit. Of course, as the hours wore on, we realized that this was a big, big thing. We evacuated within 45 minutes of seeing the flames, but we didn't pack as if we were going to be gone for a long, long time. And it wasn't until we were evacuated up in Santa Barbara, 2 hours away, that we realized how big the fires were and that they were going to be devastating and that we were going to lose everything. Our house was going to burn to the ground with all of our kids' stuff, with all of my husband's work stuff, with all of my work stuff, with all of the raw footage that I had from all of the documentaries that I'd made. and all of the documentaries I hoped to make that were in progress, all of my camera equipment, just kind of everything burned. And it was a shocking, a shocking event, only made more shocking when my mother also lost her home. She lived within 10 minutes of us, and I had backup stuff at her house. So it was both her losing all of her stuff and me losing all of my stuff. So, what happens in the aftermath of like a natural disaster, act of God, whatever we want to call it, is there are helpers. There are people that show up to give aid to people. And, I'm pretty skeptical about all that kind of stuff and not, somebody who receives help very much. I'm somebody who tells other people's stories or, follows other people around with a camera or, writes about other people, but I'm not the subject necessarily. I'm not in the center of it. I'm not the person who people are rushing to give aid to. In the first few weeks after the fire, there was a clothing drive at the local Episcopal church. And the truth is, like, I was living in the same sweatpants that I'd evacuated in, and I didn't have any underpants, or bras. Bras were a big thing. There's some random things that you don't realize that you don't have when you have evacuated so quickly, and that you really kind of need. At the same time, I was not destitute. I was not in the position where I was sleeping on a cot, where I was in a Red Cross shelter. By this point, insurance had kicked in so that we were in an Airbnb. But I do remember, needing clothes, not being able to walk into clothing stores to just like, where do you even begin? Like, oh, can I help you? Are you looking for anything special today? And I'm like, I need everything. And you just don't know where to begin. And it all ends up costing so much more money than you ever imagined when you're starting from scratch. Anyway, I spent a bit of time in the parking lot outside of that Montecito Episcopal church where I saw, very nice people that maybe kind of look like me exiting their nice cars with boxes of things, looking very enthusiastic about giving these things to fire victims. And I could not possibly imagine walking in there. I just couldn't handle what at the time felt like a kind of humiliation, or like I would be passing these tables and all these fancy ladies would have long faces and, oh, we're so sorry. We're so sorry. And like, did I look the part? Was I, needy enough? Was I taking something from somebody else who actually really needed these things more than I did? Because eventually, in the fullness of time, I would buy some things, and I had a stylist friend who got some fancy designer things that she gave me, so I had resources. Anyway, I turned away. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go in. I couldn't face it.
Hey, it's Josh. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. And if so, are you wanting more road stories? Well, good news. I've got you covered. Consider becoming a patron. You'll have access to loads of great bonus stories that there just wasn't time for. And you'll be supporting a truly independent podcast. Find the link in the show notes. And thanks. Now back to the show.
we waited to the very, very, very last day, which was a Friday, when we had to start clearing the debris from our lot. And we signed up for the very last day that these volunteers were going to come to help sift through the ashes to see if there would be anything to recover. Chris had done this, my husband, unbeknownst to me. This was an organization called what I called Good Samaritans, but it was Samaritan's Purse. And leading up to this, there was a lot of questions like, well, what is it going to be like? Are they going to try to make us evangelicals? Because I guess, Samaritan's Purse is Billy Graham's organization, and now it's run by his son, who's kind of a Trumper. And what is this all going to be like? How awful is it going to be? And I asked a fire friend who had relocated up to Ventura. I said, she had her debris removal like a couple of days before. And I said, how is it? What is it like? Did they pray with you? And she said, they pray 3 times. There are 3 prayers. And I'm sharing this with my husband over a text thread. And he's like, oh my fucking God, you're kidding me. Oh God. And I could see Chris's face. I had been considering just letting Chris go by himself. And I realized then that, he needed support. He needed someone else to go with him. And I told him that I would go with him and help and just be there. Because I think Chris's biggest concern was that he didn't want to lie to these people. He didn't want to pretend that, he was moved by the Spirit of God or something if he wasn't. And he also just wanted to do the work. Like, he didn't want to stand around praying. He wanted to sift through the ashes and see if we could find anything. He was particularly fixated on seeing if he could find this metal horse's head that he had on a shelf that he was sure would have survived. So we drove the 2 hours down to our lot with all the debris on it. We also had a bulldozer there because the bulldozer was going to begin right after we left to actually, remove some of these big pieces. And, the problem for us was that there weren't like real fine ashes to sift through. It wasn't going to be a really easy ash sifting because all of our walls had kind of fallen on top of each other. And so there were 3 floors if you included my basement office. And so things were buried under chunks of plaster, and it wasn't just like an easy archaeological dig. They showed up in 3 cars. There was the tool truck with the big Good Samaritan on the side of it. There was a van that had the rest of the volunteers, the leader of this thing, and then followed by another car with 2 chaplains in it. And so everybody gets out, and I've been prepared by my friend that they're going to start with a prayer. So we meet everybody. We, start to do a little bit of just the, getting to know you niceties, and learn that the lead guy who drove the tool truck is from Alabama. And he has flown here and has been in California all week. It's his first trip to California to volunteer his time. There is also this entire family from the Central Valley in California. It's a mother and a father, probably in their 40s, and their 4 kids, like college age to like teenage age, like the age of my kids. And they've never been to LA either, even though they're from the Central Valley in California. It's still like a 6-hour drive away. And all of these people have been sleeping on cots in a church in downtown LA for a week. And at this point, I'm thinking like, oh my God, these people have been sleeping in cots in order to come and help Chris and me, who are skeptical, left brain, West Siders in LA, on the edges of the entertainment industry, basically fancy pants people. And they're here kind of with these open hearts, open evangelical hearts, but their hearts are open to help us with this excavation, sifting through the ashes effort. The chaplains pray with us, and then they go off, and it's a very straightforward prayer. Thank you for coming together. Thank you for letting us do this with you. Hope that you find peace in your time of trouble. Then we get to sifting the ashes. We learn about these people's lives. We learn about the lead guy and his life and his family story of growing up with a dad who was married 5 times and a whole bunch of half siblings. And he's also a veteran. He's got a hook for a hand. He's got a prosthetic hook, which is frankly quite useful when he's doing the debris removal. They spent 4 hours with us. We sifted through, what I thought was my office and found a lot of butterfly clips and old typewriters. Chris never found his big metal head that he was hoping to find. Basically, we found very, very little. But the experience was the gift, how hokey that sounds. Being with these people from the Central Valley, they gave us a Bible at the end where they had written in it. And, the handwriting wasn't the handwriting of people who had necessarily graduated high school. They left very heartfelt messages. Thank you for letting us sift through the ashes. Messages of hope you will find comfort. The final prayer, the daughter, the sort of oldest daughter, led that prayer. And she, was super kind. And I would also say non-denominational. It was really very much of I hope you'll get through this. And the thing that struck Chris and me later is that we were in a circle. That's what they did. They circled up to pray. And so before they left, they said, okay, let's circle up. We took off all the PPE that we were wearing, and we were circling up. And I sort of had my hands down, almost like in a prayer thing, but they were really just my hands were kind of clasped together. But then this girl who was leading the prayer, their adult daughter, she put her arm around me, and Chris was on my other side, and he put his arm around me, and everybody had their arms around each other. And I just sort of found myself, I don't know, it's funny to think about it, but I found myself leaning my head on her shoulder. And that was totally fine. I mean, she didn't recoil or anything, but I just kind of leaned my head on her shoulder, and she said very nice things about us welcoming her and her family into our home in our time of loss, and thanked us so much for the gift that we had given them, which really struck me also. Are you kidding me? You just spent 4 hours of your time exposing yourself to this fine dust, sleeping on a cot for a week, and you're thanking me, And then they left, and we waved as they left. They got back in their cars, and they were going to clean the bathroom and clean the place where they'd slept, and waved and smiled. And, I've never imagined that I will necessarily see those people again. Chris and I, being the snarky people that we are, we looked up on, we used ChatGPT to see okay, well, there's Samaritan's Purse? Are they like good evangelicals or are they bad evangelicals? And like, do they say that like you can pray the gay away? And like, what kind of people are they? But I have to say, despite all of that, it was some of the most moving help that we've received. And I think Chris and I needed that kind of circling up, that like physical contact in a way more than we knew. There was had been since the fire, no circling up, no group hug, no group prayer, no group anything like that. As very left brain, fancy people, we just get to the spreadsheets with the insurance adjusters, and there's very little circling up. And I got a lot out of that.
I want to thank Tracy for sharing her experience. Be sure to check out her Substack, On Fire, a beautiful exploration about life in transition. Link in the show notes. Do you know someone who was affected by the recent LA fires? Whether first person or just any Angelino, text them this episode. They might really appreciate it. This podcast is created and produced by me, Josh Caldwell. Music by Visual Aid, my side music project. General support and copywriting by Miranda Caldwell. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come back next time.